Hey, what's up everyone? So far so good with our chat application, and actually just a few videos that are remaining, about 5 of them. So all that remains for us to do is to be able to create a chat, open that chat, and fetch the messages for that chat. Then we'll be able to send a message, and then after that, we will be adding Socket IO for real-time messaging and add a notification system on top of that. So only the good parts that remains where you get to learn a lot of stuff. And another thing, I checked stats on the other day and I saw that about 80% of you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, although you do watch my content. So if you find my content helpful, please make sure you do subscribe to the channel. It really helps. Also like the video. And another thing, if you need the source code, it is available on my Patreon just at $3 per month. This is another great way in which you can support my content. And also you can be able to give me direct DMs there, and I'll give your Patreon DMs a higher priority. So I'll answer your questions. Anyway, let's just dive right into the video and enjoy. Okay, so I want us to list some users here whom we can have a chat with. So if we already have a chat with a user, we will not list them, and we will not also list ourselves. Okay, in MongoDB, I added some few more users so that we can have some data to work with. So you can also do the same if you want by registering as new users. So what we need to do is to just jump into VS Code, and then we will fetch all the users from the DB, and we'll perform some filtering. Okay, let's do that. I'll go to VS Code here. In the chat context right here, what we will do, we will add a new piece of state, and these will be const. I'll be calling them potential chats. So these are other users whom we can have a chat with, and we don't already have a chat with them. So I'll say potential chats here, and set potential chats. These will be equal to use state. Initially, these can be an empty array. And then the next thing is to make a HTTP request from the DB to get all the users. So we'll make use of the use effect hook. So I can call it here use effect. Here you'll have our dependency array, and then in here we can create a function. I'll say const get users will be equal to an arrow function. Also, we make sure that we are calling that get users here, get users, just like that, and we can perform our fetch right here. And I'll just copy this one. It will be so similar. We'll be making use of our get request service we had created earlier. We should include async here since we are using await. Then base URL, we change this endpoint to users. So whatever we will get here is an array of all the users from our DB. Okay, so we should check if we are having an error. So right here I can say if response.error exists. What we should do is to return console.log. So if you want, you can add a piece of state for the error, but I won't do that. I just want this to be simple, and this is good enough. So if we don't have an error, that means that the request was successful, and we have array of users here, and we can make use of that array of users to do some filters, and then get our potential chats or users whom we can start a chat with. So here we can take our response, then we will use filter. When we use filter, we will get a user at a time. So here we will get each user at a time, and we will write our conditions here, and whatever we will be getting back is an array. So we can store that array here in a constant. So we can say const p charts, and then the first thing that we can do is to exclude ourselves or the currently logged in user. This is how we can do it. We perform a check. We can say if the user currently logged in user dot underscore id is equal to the user now from the db, which we are iterating from this array, dot underscore id. So that means that this current user whom we are iterating is the logged in user. So we should not add that user to this array, this pcharts array. So right here we immediately return and we say false. So since now this condition is returning false, this user will not be added to the pcharts. Okay, and now down here we should check if we already have a chart created with this user, and I'll do this like this. I'll add a variable here and I'll say let is chart created. Okay, I should include it in a new line to be more readable here, to be equal to false. Okay, we will make use of this is chart created by checking our user charts using the sum array method. Okay, so first of all, you can see that the user charts here can be null. So we should check that we actually have user charts first. So I'll say if user charts actually exist, let's go ahead and proceed with execution of the code in here. And here we will say user charts, and then we will use the sum array method, and this sum array method returns a boolean, either true or false. So we will be checking whether this ID of this user is included in the members of the chart. So when we use sum here, we will be having a chart at a time, and we can make use of this chart in here. We will return and we will perform a condition. We will say chart, then we will access the members array, and we can read the first value. So we know that in our members we only have two members or two IDs of users, so we can access each of them. So right here I'm accessing the first one, then I'll compare it with the ID of the user. So this user, so I'll check if this user ID is inside our first member right here. So if it's equal, that means that we already have a chart with this particular user. Therefore, is chart created will be true. Okay, so whatever we return here will be true. That means that we can assign that to this variable. So we say is chart created to be equal to whatever we return here. So if it's true, that means that we already have a chart created with this member. But we should also make sure that we check the second member, just in case the ID matches on the second member. So right here we should add all, and then we'll say chart dot members, and we access the second member, and we set this to be equal to u dot underscore id. So if the first member is equal to the u dot underscore id, or the second chart member is equal to u or underscore id, then if it returns true, that means that we have a chart created with that person, and if it returns false, it means that we don't have a chart created with that particular person. Okay, and then now right here, whatever we will return, if a chart is created, we don't want to return that. We want to return when a chart is not created. So we will negate this value. Okay, so we will say return chart is, not created. So I'll use not is chat created. So when a chat is not created, this will return false. Then we negate it here to true. So if a chat is not created, this user will be added to these p charts. I hope that makes sense. Okay. The last thing that I can do is to set the state. So now that we have these p charts, down here after this, I can say set potential charts to be our p charts. And remember, this p charts is just an array of users whom we can start a chat with. And then we should also include our user charts in our dependency array. Whenever this array changes, we make a call to this effect again. So let's just include user charts here. And then I save, and fingers crossed that will work. Now we can pass these potential charts down here. So right here, I'll say potential charts, just like that, and I'll save. I'll be adding a new component, and I can call it potential charts. So right inside the chart here, let's add a new file, and I'll say potential charts .jsx, and then in here sfc, then I'll say potential charts. Then we can do something in here. So right here we'll be able to access our array of potential charts from the use context or the chart context. So right here, let's bring in const with the structure potential charts, and I'll set this to be equal to use context, and I invoke this, and I will pass our chart context. There we go. And then we can log this to the console first to see if we get anything. So console .log. Okay, now we take these potential charts and we will display this component inside our chart page. So we can do that just inside this container. So after this container, I'll include it here, and I'll say potential charts. Okay, I'll save, and also I think we can include something here just to see where it will be displayed. Okay, now I'll go into my browser. So you'll see start chart is here, and then inside the potential charts you'll see that we have two IDs, or two, actually it's not two IDs but two users. We have all the details of the user here. We have Jane and we have Peter. What's the reason that we don't have Charles? Because we already have a chat with Charles, all Chaoo here, and also we don't have ourselves because we already eliminated that. Now we can just take these details of the user, just maybe even the name, and display them here. So we can do that. It's okay. So in our potential charts, we just need to continue implementing this. Actually, I can just remove the log there. In here, I'll start by adding a div with a class of all users. That is the class name I used while styling. So dot all users. You can actually rename it to make more sense, but I'll just use it. I don't want to dive into CSS. We can map through our potential charts, so I can check if we actually have that array first. So right here, I'll say does potential charts exist? So we'll say end. So if it exists, let us proceed to map through them. So we'll say that dot map, and in here, okay, we will get a user at a time, and then index of that user. And now in here, a div with a class name of a single user, and in here we'll be able to do something, but first of all let us add a key, and we'll set the key to be the index, and right here we will just show the name. So I can say you dot name, but this is JSX, so we wrap it in the curly brackets like that. And then also in here we will be showing the online status, so we can add a span. You can say span dot user hyphen online. So Emmet will add that class name for us, and now right here we don't need to add anything. The style for these will be added with CSS, but later will be conditionally be rendering this username. So online, actually here I had not seen that. Okay, I'll save, and now we should be having a user with a good style and showing the online status right at the top here. And we don't see anything which is bad. At our chart context, line 23, it's complaining. Chart context, line 23, it's complaining about an ID. Okay, I can use this. Let me save. Let's refresh. We are no longer getting our charts for some reason. Let's log it back to the console. So console.log, you can say pcharts, potential charts. Okay, the crazy thing is that we still have our users here at our array, but we are not seeing them here. So to fix this, right here we are not returning our div here, so we should include return keyword. So I'll say return, and we'll include it in here. Let's remove that semicolon here. Okay, it should be like this. Okay, so I'll save, and let's see. Cool, now there we go. We have Jane Doe, we have Peter. We can show the online status. Very nice. Now what remains is when we click on this user, we are able to create their chart and show them down here. Okay, so what we will do, we'll go back to our chart context, and in chart context we are going to create a function here that will help us to create a chart. So right here I'll say const create chart. These will be equal to the use callback. Here we'll have a function, and then here we'll have our dependency array. Okay, now right here we will make a HTTP request to our backend in order for us to create a chart. So let me copy one of these. Now right here we'll paste it. We will be getting a response, and this response will be an object of the chart. Then right here we are saying await, so we should be wrapping this with async, and then this will now be a post request, so we will change this to post request. Post request will be accepting 2 parameters. The URL, actually this will be just stroke charts. So this is the URL. Then second parameter, we should be having the first ID and the second ID. So we will get those whenever we call the function, so we can get them right here first. So we'll have a first ID and second ID, and this is what we will pass right here, and we can convert them into a JSON string. So I can make use of JSON dot stringify, we invoke these, we pass an object, and right here we will be having now our first ID, comma, our second ID. And now these will hit our endpoint. We will get first ID and second ID from the body, and we will create our chart and get a response right here. Now we can check if we actually have an error in this response. So if we have a response dot error, let us go ahead and return. Okay, if we don't have an error, that means that we will skip this part. And actually there is an issue. Oh, I'm doing these are so wrong. These should not be inside our post request, so I should cut it and include it out here. Okay, so it should be outside the post request. Yeah, there we go. So if we don't have an error, we'll be able to proceed down here, and we will set our user charts. We invoke these, and in here we can access the previous state, and we use that to update the state correctly. So right here I'll return an array, and I'll spread the previous state like this, and then we will add our response here, and that will update the array of our charts, and we should be able to see them in the UI. But now we should be calling these, okay, create chart from somewhere. So right here, let us go ahead and pass our create chart and jump into potential charts. We'll be able to bring in that create chart function here. So create chart. Okay, and then right here we will be calling an on-click event, okay, at a single chart here. So right here I'll say on click. So whenever we click a user here, let us have these. We will call our create chart. So here create chart, we will invoke these, and we should pass our first ID and our second ID. So for the first ID, this will be the ID of the currently logged in user. So let us bring our user in. So const here we'll have user, and we'll set this to be equal to use context, and we invoke these to be auth context. And now right here we will have our user ID. So we can say user dot underscore ID. So right here you'll have u dot underscore ID. Now when we click on this create chart will be called. Our user dot underscore ID will be received right here as first ID, then the other one will be received as the second ID, and we'll pass those as the body of our request and use them to create a chart. Remember, our chart contains members only, and those members are just the IDs. Okay, let's try this in our browser and see if it actually works. I will refresh everything, and I click on Jendo, and look, Jendo is removed from here, and we get Jendo right here. Very nice. That is amazing. Okay, now what remains is for us, whenever we click on Chaoo here, we can be able to open a chat box here and list all the messages for that particular user. So we will do that in the next episode.